A quorum of 100 members is required to complete the meeting this evening, and we had 200 members present, so we qualify. The next item of business will be introduction of visitors, guests. Jim Lewick, Vice President.
Yes, we do. Please stand. We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got a real nice crowd again tonight. This is good, y'all, to turn out. I'm going to start in here with some of our visitors and guests we've got with us tonight. And if you'll hold your applause till we're all done, that'll speed things up a little bit. First, we've got Pat Bridges, Senior Vice President, CFO at Tri-State. Gary Meyer, also with Tri-State. Glenda Lonick, Senior Manager, Assistant General Counsel at Tri-State. Drew Kramer, Public Affairs Manager of Tri-State, back over here in the corner. And he also brought along his driver, his robot. Robot's here to remind us all of the benefits we all receive for power. Obviously, his name, Power. We just need to be reminded, what electricity does for us, just like Pastor just mentioned, what benefits we all receive out of this and how grateful and whole bit. But it's something we all seem to take for granted too many times unless light doesn't come on. Okay, we've also got Liz Fittis with Colorado Rural Electric back in the back. Y'all should have met her tonight. She was in a good spot to be in. Also got Mike Prom, CEO of Western United, right over here. Okay, Mindy Lutz. I hope I didn't mangle that too badly. President, Holyoke Community Federal. Bob Bledsoe, he's on the board of YW Electric. And he also brought along his mother, Lucille Bledsoe. Glad you could make him, ma'am. We also have Terry and Roxanne Hall. Terry's the manager at YW Electric and a great, great friend of Highline Electrics. Shocked, aren't you, Terry? We also have Brian Gales, President, Bank of Colorado. Deb Williamson, President, Bank of the West. Tom Bennett, President, First Pioneer National Bank. Nice to see you, Tom. Brenda Brandt, Editor of Holyoke Enterprise. Thanks for coming, ma'am. We got these are our regular folks that we can count on. We've also got some retired employees with us tonight. First, I'd like to introduce Dixie Fagerlin. No, got to stand up, Dixie. Sorry. You're not getting off easy. We also got Carol Bussell. There you are, Carol, back here. Glenn Sandquist. There you are, Glenn. And we also got Laura and Jean Bittner. There you are. Good to see you. We also have tonight, if I can find the right... Okay. Our attorney is up here, Levi Williamson. He keeps us on the straight and narrow at the board. Our board members, I'm Jim Lewick. I represent District 1. I've been on the board 21 years. I'm the vice president of Highline Electric Board, and I also represent Highline on Colorado Rural Electric Association Board, and I serve as treasurer of CREA. My wife Peggy was back there, helped take money from you generous folks at helping out the Women's Task Force. We've got Leo Breckel. Where are you at? There you go. Represents District 1 also and has been on the board 20 years. Leo represents Highline on the Tri-State Generation and Transmission Board, where he serves as secretary. He represents Tri-State on the Midwest Electric Consumers Board, where he serves as vice president, and also represents Tri-State on the Basin Electric Power Cooperative Board. His wife, Debbie, was unable to attend tonight, taking care of grandkids, and I think she might see Leo every once in a while anyway with his schedule. We've got Merle Miller. Merle represents District 4 and has been on the board 17 years, and Merle is treasurer of the Highline Electric Board, and his wife Ann was ill tonight and couldn't make it. We've got Mike Bennett. Mike represents District 2 and has been on the board 14 years. Mike's president of the Highline Electric Board, and his wife Susan's also back there helping with the Women's Task Force. Merlin Pryor. Merlin represents District 4 and has been on the board 12 years. His wife Janet, unable to attend. We've got Michael Bornia. Michael represents District 1 and has been on the board 11 years. Michael is secretary of the board and represents Highline and Western United Electric Supply Board. And his wife Lynn's back there helping with the task force also. Steve Ostman. Steve represents District 2 and has been on the board 10 years, and his wife Lori. That's okay, Lori, you don't have to stand up. We know where you're at. Ted Carter. Ted represents District 3 and has been on the board 8 years, and his wife Patty. No Mark tonight? Stromberg? Mark's not here tonight. Okay. We've got Mark Stromberger also on the board, but he was unable to attend. Mark represents District 1 and has been on the board 7 years. We also got Aaron Sprague. Aaron represents District 2 and has been on the board 4 years. Aaron is on the Republican River Water Conservation District Board, as if he couldn't take enough arrows on this board. His wife Amber's with him tonight. We appreciate you all coming. We've also got Bruce Girk. Bruce represents District 3, has been on the board 4 years. He's retiring off the board, and we have certainly appreciated everything Bruce has done for Highline Electric Board of Directors. And his wife Shirley is with him tonight. And I believe that's all I've got, right? Okay. Okay, thanks for your attendance, and we appreciate you all being here.
Notice of the annual meeting. The annual meeting for the membership of Highline Electric Association will be held in the Phillips County Event Center at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 24th, 2015, to transact the following business: the reports of officers, directors, and committees, election of directors, all other business which may come before the meeting or any adjournment thereof in connection with the election of directors scheduled for this meeting. The following members have been nominated for directors by petition pursuant to the bylaws. For election of one director from District 1, representing members in Logan, Washington, Weld, and Morgan counties in Colorado, Jim Lewick is the incumbent director nominee. For elector of one director from District 2, representing members in Phillips and Yuma County in Colorado, Mike Bennett is the incumbent director nominee. For election of one director from District 3, representing members in Sedgwick County, Colorado, and Dual County, Nebraska, Dave Kinnison is the nominee. For election of one director from District 4, representing members in Chase, Perkins, and Dundee counties in Nebraska, Merlin Pryor is the incumbent director nominee. The unapproved minutes of the 2014 annual meeting are posted on our website, www.hea.coop, and can be looked at there. Now I will read the minutes from the March 25th, 2014 meeting if you want, or I could take a motion to dispense with that. There's a motion. Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you.
I would like to introduce our attorney, Levi Williamson. He will discuss the procedure required to carry on the election this year.
Highline elects its directors through a nomination and petition process. Each candidate must obtain the signature of 15 Highline members in order to become a candidate for the board. This year, as Michael mentioned, there is one candidate for each of the open districts. District 1, Mr. Jim Lewick. District 2, Mike Bennett. District 3, David Kinnison. And District 4, Merlin Pryor. Because there is no competition this year, we can do this by a voice vote. So at this time I would, it does say here I'm supposed to ask the candidates if they would like to address the audience. Because I'm supposed to keep them on the straight and narrow, I will warn them that they do so at their own risk. Okay. Being nobody wishes to speak, we will move to a voice vote. Do I have a motion to elect the candidates? I have a motion. Do I have a second? And a second. All right, we'll move to a voice vote. All members present do have a vote. All those in favor say aye. All those all those opposed? The ayes have it, and the 4 candidates are elected. At this time, Jesse Dolshaw will come up and introduce you to the Washington Youth Tour delegate. Yeah?
I would like to introduce Jesse Dolshaw, our new member services rep. She replaces Dixie, who retired this year.
Dixie really enjoyed being involved with the kids that participated in the youth tour and camp. On behalf of everyone at Highline, we would like to thank all of the students who apply and that go to the youth tour and camp every year. Last summer, Highline sponsored Deborah Kurtzer to attend the 2014 National Rural Electric Youth Tour in Washington, D.C. Deborah is a senior at Fleming High School and is the daughter of Randy and Sue Kurtzer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Kurtzer. All right. So Thursday, June 12, 2014, the first day of the Washington, D.C. Youth Tour was terrifying. To meet 29 other kids from all over the state would petrify any high school student. But that's where the nerves ended. After the first awkward meeting of all 30 of us, we all began getting to know everyone and relaxing into the group. That first day, we met at United Power in Brighton. We learned about what they do there and built a diorama of the path electricity takes from production to businesses and houses. After lunch, we visited the state capitol. I had never been there before, so it was really incredible to see and hear about the building. Friday was a traveling day, which I was okay with because I really, really like flying despite all the horror stories you might hear about airports and airplanes. The next morning, we visited Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is overwhelming and amazing and beautiful. The large backyard overlooks the Potomac River, and the gardens and the orchards were spectacular. Seeing the place where George Washington lived was eye-opening. This actually happened. These people lived and did the things we read about in history books, and probably did not even think that we would be here as a nation to talk about what they had accomplished. After lunch at Mount Vernon, we had to pack up and head to the National Cathedral. As we were driving there, we drove past several international embassy houses. They each had their country's flag waving outside, and they were more like mansions than houses. The National Cathedral itself was extraordinary. The detail put into the stonework and stained glass windows was exquisite. It reminded me of the Notre Dame Cathedral in the Disney movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Next, we paid a visit to the Arlington National Cemetery. We got to see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I left that place with a deep appreciation for those laid to rest in the cemetery and those commemorated by the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We continued on to see the Jefferson Memorial, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. It was really neat to walk through all of them and read the quotes that each of the different men had said. On the 15th, we got to go see Ford Cedar and the Peterson House across the street where President Lincoln died. Unfortunately, we were rushed through the Peterson House because the line was so long, but it was still fun to look and walk through. Monday, we toured the Vietnam Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, the Washington Monument, and the World War II Memorial. I had seen the Lincoln Memorial statue in pictures, but seeing it in real life was incredibly surreal. When we went inside the Washington Monument, I don't exactly know what I was expecting, but looking out over the city from the top of the monument exceeded any expectation I had. Touring the Library of Congress on Tuesday was fun. We got to see Thomas Jefferson's collection of books that he donated to the library, and 3 other kids and I decided to get library cards from the Library of Congress, which was a pretty cool experience. After we got our library cards, we got to look at the Smithsonian museums, which are right next to the library. My group visited the Air and Space Museum and the American History Museum. That evening, we got to go see the Iwo Jima Memorial Sunset Parade. The Marine Corps marching band performed, and their precision was flawless and incredible to watch. The very last day of the trip, Wednesday, June 18th, we got to go to the U.S. Capitol building and listen to Senator Michael Bennet speak and ask him questions. We also got to meet Representatives Scott Tipton and Cory Gardner. I really appreciated the time they took to talk to us about things they do and answer our questions. We got to tour the building and ride what they called a politician's roller coaster. The roller coaster was really just a car on rails to bypass all of the people crowding the sidewalk during the busy times of the year. That night, we were able to see a production of The Lion King at the Kennedy Center. Disney movies are some of my favorite, so getting to see a live production of The Lion King was amazing. I was extremely sad to leave Washington, D.C. and all the friends I had made on the trip, but I was also extremely excited that I was able to have this experience. All of the places I visited, I hope to go back and see one day. So thank you so much to HEA for sponsoring me to go on the Washington, D.C. Youth Tour. It was a wonderful experience that I encourage other students to participate in. Thank you.
Highline also sponsored 4 youth to attend the 2014 Youth Leadership Camp in Clark, Colorado. The students were Shaylin Johnson, Brandon Struckmeyer, Anna Roosh, and Dylan Koch. Shaylin is a senior at Kalichi High School and is the daughter of Mark and Becky Johnson. Brandon is a senior at Holyoke High School and is the son of Dell and Jennifer Struckmeyer. Anna is a senior at Rolston Valley High School and is the daughter of Terry and Joanne Roosh. Dylan is a senior at Holyoke High School and is the son of Troy Koch and Christy Cage. Brandon, Anna, and Dylan were unable to attend tonight's meeting. In a letter from Anna, she expressed her gratitude for sponsoring her to attend the leadership camp. For her, this was a life-changing experience. Anna liked learning about safety around power lines, the impact of electric co-ops, and how Congress makes decisions. Dylan is grateful he was chosen to go to the leadership camp. He got a lot out of the projects and activities, which he felt helped improve his social and leadership skills. Through this camp, Dylan gained knowledge, skills, and respect for his co-op that he may not have acquired otherwise. Now Shaylin would like to share a little bit about her experience.
Hi, I'm Shaylin Johnson. I'm a senior at Kalichi High School, and I got the opportunity to attend the leadership camp in Steamboat Springs this past summer. Throughout the week, I grew as a leader among my peers and learned the powerful energy sources in our daily lives. The part I enjoyed most was visiting the Craig Power Plant and, of course, going whitewater rafting. Having power show up at the camp was pretty exciting, too, as well as interacting with past camp members that were leaders was a great influence because they got to tell us stories about their camp experiences and make ours more enjoyable. I'd like to give a big thank you to Highline Electric and the board for sending me and giving me this great opportunity. I would recommend this leadership camp to any student wanting to go learn more about your cooperative and how your energy is produced. And also thank you to Dixie, and congratulations on your retirement. Thank you.
Liz, would you like to come up? Or would you like me to take care of it? Okay, I can do that. Well, we're going to draw for the big winner. And remind me, Dennis, this is the prize? Or this is the total? $50% of this is the price. That's what I was thinking. And the total is $168. So half of that would be... No. Oh, this is the prize. So twice as much was... We've got a number. I will just read the last four. 6629. Back there at the back. Who is our big winner? That's me. I can't hear him. Well, we appreciate everybody participating. It's a big deal. These kids have a great time, learn a lot, and they are our future. So the more we can give to this cause, the more we can get out of it. So thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce our General Manager, Mark Farnsworth.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So good evening. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for coming out to Highline's 2015 annual meeting. And what I usually do every year is introduce staff. So I'm going to ask the staff to stand up when I introduce them. And I'd like to ask everybody to just hold your applause until I get to the end. Barb Holtzman, she's my executive assistant. Barb's back in the corner. Trent Lautensock, Manager of Engineering. Where's Trent? Trent, thank you. Rance Ferguson, Operations Manager. Rance is just our new Operations Manager. And Dennis Herman, Manager of Member and Corporate Services. And you've met Jessie. She's done a lot of work in getting this annual meeting put together. All the rest of the employees, could you stand up? They're around mainly in the back there. I'd like to thank our employees for their efforts every day in keeping the lights on and serving our members. And I really do appreciate their efforts tonight. If we didn't have them helping, we couldn't make this happen. So let's give them a round of applause. And I don't know if you noticed, but I left somebody out. Nancy Burgess. Nancy, where are you at? There you are. Okay, Nancy, would you please come up here a second? It's not very often in someone's career and has the opportunity that I have tonight. It's not very often that you have an employee that's worked at one place for 50 years. This is Nancy's 50th year at Highline. And I would like to ask you to help me say thank you for years of service. So I do have, thank you very much. I do have one question for you, Nancy. Did you start at Highline when you were 8? 7.5, okay. And it's really nice to have somebody with experience. working for me. Just yesterday afternoon, I went up to Nancy and we were talking. She said, how you doing? And I said, I don't have my speech ready yet. And she said, don't worry about it, Mark. They're not here to listen to you anyway. So it's always nice to have help. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Dennis Herman and ask him to come and share financial information.
Good evening. We purchased 388,523,429 kilowatt hours in 2014 from our power supplier, Tri-State G&T. This was down 45 million kilowatt hours from 2013. We sold to you, our members, 355 million kilowatt hours, a decrease of 41 million from 2013. Irrigation accounted for the largest share of kilowatt hour sales, with 52.5% of the kilowatt hours sold. Large commercial followed with 23.8%, residential at 17%, and small commercial with 6.7% of the kilowatt hours sold. Operating revenues for 2014 were just over $42 million, which was a decrease of $4.6 million from 2013. The decrease in revenue is largely due to the decrease in kilowatt hour sales to our irrigation customers. We deferred $1.2 million in revenue in 2013 with the intent of bringing $400,000 back per year in 2014 through 2016. It was not necessary to bring in the planned $400,000 in 2014 in order to meet our required loan covenants. So we have amended our revenue deferral plan with RUS to recognize $400,000 in 2015 and $800,000 in 2016. Our operating margins in 2014 were $113,995. With this operating margin, Highline was able to meet all of our mortgage requirements. The most stringent of these requirements is O-tier, or operating times interest earned ratio. O-tier is a function of interest on long-term debt, operating margins, and cash received from Tri-State for capital credit retirements. Our mortgage requires that our O-tier, when averaged over 2 years, remain above a minimum level. Our operating margin in 2014 was sufficient to keep us in good standing with our lenders. Highline's operating margins are generated from the sale of electricity to our members. There are other non-operating margins that Highline receives from cooperatives that we are members of. Tri-State represents Highline's largest investment in other cooperatives. Highline margins for 2014 were $2,287,056. This is comprised of the Highline-generated operating margins of $113,995, $1,968,575 that was generated by our membership in Tri-State, Western United, CoBank, and CFC, and $204,486 in interest and other non-operating income. The bottom line margin of $2,287,056 was allocated to you as capital credits. In 2014, the Board of Directors approved a capital credit refund that included the balance of 1999 and 10% of 2000 Highline capital credits, and the balance of 1993 and 50% of 1994 Tri-State capital credits, for a total general retirement of $2,371,594. We also retired estates totaling $133,941 in 2014, for a total of $2,505,535 retired to our members. This slide shows our capital credit allocations and refunds since 1948. We have accrued capital credits of $99 million. We have refunded to estates $4.8 million over this time period, and again our general refund in 2014 was $2,371,594. Refunds in prior years were $32.6 million, totaling $39.8 million returned to our members since 1948. When we consider the $1.2 million revenue deferral, our member capital credit balance is $59.2 million, of which $18 million is comprised of equity in Highline and $41.2 million represents equity in Tri-State and other cooperatives. We are currently on a 15-year retirement cycle for Highline Capital Credits, and as Tri-State retires capital credits to Highline, we return that money to our members through retiring Tri-State capital credits. We ended 2014 with cash and investments of $9 million. Highline continues to maintain a strong balance sheet. We ended 2014 with an equity level of 53.3%, or 54.4% when we consider the effects of the deferred revenue. Equity measures the extent that you as members have financed plant in lieu of borrowed capital. Highline has an equity management plan that calls for a minimum of 50% equity. I'd like to talk for just a moment about our expenses. The cost to maintain our plant and make sure electricity is available, basically the cost of running Highline, was 19% of our total expenses in 2014. Depreciation and interest was another 11%, and our cost of wholesale power was 70% of our expenses last year. As you can see, what happens at the generation and transmission level with Tri-State has a very large impact on the bill we send to you. I'd like to finish up by sharing with you a few changes that will be coming your way in the next couple of weeks. These changes include the updating of our online account management tools and the release of our mobile application. While our online account management tools definitely have a new look and feel, the change that we are most excited about is the ability to associate multiple electric accounts with one online login. Once you register with our new online, you can associate all of your accounts with that login as long as you have your account number and meter number, or your account number and old online password. The new online account management tools also allow you to sign up for alert notifications. These notifications are configurable by you and will generate an email for certain events. These events range from invoice available to payment received. Our new mobile application is available now for Apple and Android devices by searching for Highline Electric in the App Store. The mobile application gives you much of the same functionality you have through our online account management. Both the online account management and the mobile application provide you with a quick, easy way to pay your account utilizing a credit card. We have some cut sheets on the tables tonight outlining some of the new functionality, and some how-to sheets will be available as you leave tonight. If you have any questions regarding these new tools, please call the Holyoke office. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Did you notice on the screen during supper that we're having a contest for we call it our Thank a Lineman. It's an appreciation day. It'll be April 13th. So members, students, businesses, schools, organizations that receive electricity from Highline are encouraged to write a short tribute to our linemen, our first responders. A judges panel will then review the emails, will select a winner, and the winner will receive an Apple iPad mini. And then the winning submission will be featured in Highline's section of the Colorado Country Life in June. All Highline employees do an excellent job. Linemen are involved daily in a dangerous job and often in very trying circumstances. So this is just one way that you can say thank you. I'd like to do something a little bit different than I normally do now. I'd like to tell you an inspirational story. It's not about a lineman. It's about a lady that Cheryl and I met in the airport. About a month ago, we were traveling out to California. Our son and daughter-in-law live in Sacramento. And my idea of traveling and going to an airport is that I want to be sitting down at the gate a minimum of an hour before that flight comes in. And so we were. And while we were sitting there, we happened to sit down next to an older lady, I think about 80 years old. I didn't exactly ask her, but I kind of got 80 years old. And she was just very easy to talk, and she was very excited. And as we sat down and started talking, she shared that she was getting married in a couple weeks, and her fiancé was a funeral director. And so as we were spending time just sitting there talking, she then proceeded to tell me she'd been married 4 times. What do you do with that, right? I'm sitting there going, okay. But she was a very friendly person, so we continued to sit down and talk. And she was first married when she was about right at 20. and she married a banker. And she said that she just really enjoyed that marriage and just really in love. Unfortunately, about 20 years into the marriage, she got cancer and passed away. Of course, she was devastated. She shared that. And about a year to 2 years, I think, after he had passed away, she went down to Florida. And she had a sister that lived in Florida. And while she was down there, she met a gentleman that actually worked in a circus. He was a ringmaster in a circus. And I didn't know this when we were talking, but often, at least back in those years ago, circuses would go down to Florida, and they'd winter down in Florida. So we were visiting, and she loved this gentleman, though very much a different person, loved him very much. Again, unfortunately, about 10 years into the marriage, he had a heart attack and passed away. Again, she was devastated. She really, after about another year or so, she felt like she needed to go to church. So she went to church. She went to a rather large church that had several different pastors. And there she met the pastor that ministered to seniors. And there again, after about a year or so, they decided to start dating. So again, about a year after their dating, they got married. And so, again, a whole different person now. She's married to a pastor. And again, unfortunately, very sadly, as she shared, that he had a heart attack and passed away also. So we were sitting there, and I said, Mary, I guess I didn't tell you that, her name's Mary. I said, Mary, you were married to a banker, you're married to a circus ringmaster, you're married to a pastor, now you're going to be married to a funeral director. They're all four very different kind of people. Was this really hard for you? And she said, no, Mark, it wasn't hard. One was for the show, one was for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, and four to go. I go all that way, and I mess up that punchline. So full disclosure, that was a joke. And I guess I was going to ask the bankers out there what it's like to be married to the bankers, but I'll pass on that. So if you have any questions or want to throw anything at me, just please wait till the very end. So this is a look at historical kilowatt-hour sales over the last 10 years with the addition of irrigation and gas compression loads and their contribution to sales over that time frame. The white bars are gas compression sales, and the dark blue bars are irrigation sales. From 2005 through 2010, things were pretty constant with our compression loads growing on an annual basis. Now, we expect variability in irrigation because of the weather, but did not see the same issue with compression loads. The variability you now see in the compression load is because of the growth of oil and gas in the Midwest and eastern parts of the United States. Our irrigation sales of 186.5 million kilowatt hours in 2014 was almost 65 million kilowatt hours lower than 2013 and 123 million kilowatt hours lower than 2012. While there is no normal for annual irrigation sales, the average over the past 10 years is 220 million kilowatt hours per year. Our large gas compression loads purchased 19 million more kilowatt hours in 2014 than they did in 2013, leaving us with a net decrease in sales of 41 million kilowatt hours from 2013. Budgeting does get interesting with the variability that we've had over the last 3 years. Highline built 4 miles of new line in 2014. We have 5,157 miles of line, 10,438 meters, and 2.02 meters per mile. The national average for cooperatives is 6 meters per mile of line. We are a rural system and a mature system. We are not forecasting much growth into the future. I just mentioned 4 miles of line built last year in a mature system. In a fast-growing system, much of the plant is new. In a mature system like Highline, we budget for upgrades and rebuilds to maintain reliable service to our members. In 2013, which is the last information we have, we supplied electricity to our members 99.99% of the time. We believe that is a minimum standard, and in our maintenance of utility plant, we're working hard to maintain or improve that standard. Highline's utility plant ended the year valued at $97.4 million, which is a $5.2 million increase over last year. In the last 5 years, we've averaged over $3 million a year to maintain or rebuild our system to meet your needs. In 2015, we have projects in our Crete, Sedgwick, Julesburg, Crook, and Iliff substations. We're replacing 6.5 miles of the Holyoke to Amherst 69 kV transmission line, 4 miles of Iliff distribution line, as well as replacing 135 poles that are not up to our standards. We also have 10 miles of distribution line for an industrial customer and 2 oil compression projects being updated or newly built, plus your requests for new or upgraded services. As part of our planning process, we develop a 10-year long-range work plan and a 4-year construction work plan. We will be developing a new long-range work plan and construction work plan in 2015. Highline did not have rate increases in 2014 and 2015. We have worked hard at keeping our costs down at Highline, but 70% of our expenses are the cost of power. Tri-State has done a good job of keeping their costs in line, but they are faced with regulatory costs mandated on them. Patrick Bridges, the CFO of Tri-State, will share more on that in just a moment. As part of our budgeting process, we discuss in depth the potential future forecasted rate increases from Tri-State. I presented a slide very comparable to this slide last year. Tri-State had forecasted an increase in rates for 2015, but were able to offset the rate increase with the refinancing of debt. In the next 4 years, Tri-State has forecasted rate increases in the 15% range. Environmental as well as transmissions needs to serve Tri-State members will drive those increases. Your board of directors asked the question, how can we keep future increases as minimal as possible? One tool is to use, or that we're going to use, is revenue deferral. Last year I shared that we had set up a revenue deferral plan utilizing operating margins from 2013, which was considerably above budgeted expectations. This allowed the deferring of $1.2 million to future years. Tri-State had forecasted rate increases in 2015 and 2016, and now, as you can see, those have moved out to 2017 and 2018. So we will bring those deferrals back in future years to offset costs. Now, as you look at this slide, the red line is projected future power costs. The yellow line denotes our goal of keeping future rate increases as low as possible and smoothing out rate impacts to our members. Tri-State is evaluating their rates for 2015, and I expect the way rates are formulated will change for 2016. This could result in rate increase for Highline above the estimated rate in the graph. Revenue deferral will not be used to keep rates artificially low, but to manage your costs in our goal of keeping your power bills affordable. We have seen these kinds of forecasts in the past, and we are using revenue deferral to manage upward cost pressures. In 2014, Senate Bill 252 was signed into law by Governor Hickenlooper. Senate Bill 252 requires Highline to get a portion of our kilowatt-hour sales from behind the meter. This would mean small-scale renewables that we would net meter. In my calculation last year, I estimated we would need to install 271 small-scale solar units. I had estimated costs to meet the mandate at $1,084,000. If we divide that by 10,438 meters, that would mean each member would pay about $104 per meter to subsidize the distributed generation requirements of SB 252. In this year's legislative session, CRA introduced Senate Bill 46, which as designed would allow Highline and other CRA members to manage our mandated costs for distributed generation. Two components would benefit Highline. The first would remove any KWH usage that is considered industrial, which lowers the amount Highline would need to acquire. The second would allow the use of solar gardens to take benefit of the economies of scale from larger solar facilities. A solar garden would allow Highline to place a number of solar panels in one location and allow our members to get credit for the solar unit instead of having a solar unit at each member's house. It's just cheaper to have all the solar panels at one location instead of 271 separate locations. The picture on the top left is of that slide is a solar garden concept compared to the individual unit just below it. Senate Bill 46 has passed the Senate and will be heard in the House. We appreciate all the interested parties working with CRA on the bill, but there is one aspect that still bothers me. Highline had requested that the language in the bill would apply to wind and hydro as well as solar. That did not happen because the solar industry wants to protect their market share. That seems a little self-serving to me. There is another bill being floated that would open up the solar garden concept for wind and hydro. And I'm not sure that there'll be any success with that bill because it's a late bill, and also the lack of support from the environmental groups, which again are looking out for the interests of the solar lobby. As I stated last year, Highline is not against renewable energy. We just don't think we should be subsidizing some members over other members. The photo on the bottom right is the Trailblazer Generation Waste Heat Facility, which under Colorado law is renewable generation. Since its inception in 2009, it's generated $1.93 million to the membership of Highline. Unfortunately, since the growth of the oil and gas industry in the Midwest and the eastern United States, the savings in the last 2 years are much less than in prior years. All members receive the benefit of the energy generated from this renewable facility. We will stay involved in assessing options because we work for our members, and our goal is reliable and affordable power bills. There are several issues that your board has spent time discussing in the last year and what those impacts will be for the future. I'd just like to take a few minutes to talk about them. First one is fossil fuels and renewable energy. It's been said that fossil fuels will soon run out ever since I've been in the utility business, which has been 37 years. The fracking of shale formations has changed that prophecy once again. The U.S. is awash in natural gas and oil. Our problem is there may not be enough refineries to process the oil that we currently have. If fracking would expand worldwide, we'll have ample oil for decades. President Jimmy Carter, 1977, about the time I got into this business, said this, that we could use up all the proven resources of oil in the entire world by the end of the next decade. The ingenuity of American business coupled with technology has changed this false reality in the oil and natural gas business. Now it's being predicted that battery storage technology will be viable within the next 5 years. This has the ability to be a game changer for the business model of electric utilities. Will environmental desires or politics move us from low-cost fuels, fossil fuels, to more expensive renewables? We're discussing how to manage for that question now in our boardroom. I'd like to talk about employees. We on the slides up there, we had 3 employees that have retired so far, and I think in 2015 we'll have 4 or 5 employees retire. David Churchwell, who is our former operations manager, moved to KC Electric, which is based in Hugo, Colorado, to be their next general manager. Those employees will take over 125 years of institutional knowledge with them. Change can be good, it's just different than what we're used to. So we have prepared for those changes. Technology. Technology is changing quickly, and we need to stay abreast of the opportunities that technology can provide. New technology can bring value to Highline, but technology can bring additional costs. We're discussing the benefits, the issues, and the costs with new technology in our boardroom. Cybersecurity. We are all becoming aware of cybersecurity issues as technology continues to develop. Cheryl and I just canceled a personal credit card when we found somebody had made a charge for us in Las Vegas. So we're asking our vendors for more proof that they've ramped up security for the programs that they use. We are doing the same with our internal programs at Highline. We will do our best to protect your personal information. We will stay vigilant in what we do. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the EPA Clean Power Program. Patrick Bridges will share more on that subject in just a moment, but the mandates of this program will cause rate increases for our members. We're working closely with Tri-State to manage the program as best we can. The Highline mission statement is to provide our members with reliable, high-quality electricity and other needed services which will improve their economic and social well-being and provide significant long-range benefit for our communities, our state, and our nation. The topics that I've just discussed are a few of the many that we deal with to bring value to you, our members. At this time, I'd like to introduce Patrick Bridges. Patrick is the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Tri-State G&T. I've asked Pat to just take a few minutes to share with you some of Tri-State's information and concerns. Pat?
Thank you. You've heard us a couple of times in the presentation preceding me that Highline's bill to Tri-State is 70% of your bill to them. And obviously that's very important. It's why I'm here. So a little bit about Tri-State, who we are and what we do, and then talk just briefly about some things we're doing to try to keep our costs down, ultimately your costs down, then some of the challenges we have, specifically the Clean Power Plan that Mark just mentioned. Now, Tri-State is a cooperative, just as Highline is a cooperative. Just as you are member owners of Highline, and 43 other co-ops are member owners of Tri-State. Tri-State serves these co-ops in a 4-state region. This is where the joke goes in about that's why we're called Tri-State, because we serve a 4-state region. The distinction between Tri-State and Highline is basically where we draw the line in the supply chain. Tri-State owns power plants and transmission lines, the high voltage, big power lines. Highline then accepts power from us at a substation and delivers that to you. Both of our jobs are similar. Both of our jobs require a lot of investment. Tri-State expends lots of money to build these various power plants and transmission lines. Our total assets are nearly $5 billion, with a B. Roughly 3/4 of that is made up of power plants, and roughly 1/4 is transmission lines. The power plants, as you see here, are predominantly coal-fired power plants. So get into a minute with the Clean Power Plan, how that affects us. Nearly 2,000 megawatts of coal-fired generation. That is the backbone of the power generation we provide you. Most of our energy produced comes from those plants. But we also own nearly 900 megawatts of gas-fired generation. Most of that, though, is what we call peaker units. It runs very, very sporadically, only on the hottest days of the year when demand is very high, because they're expensive plants to run. We don't own renewable generation, but we have contracts to buy renewable power, nearly 900 megawatts. The biggest chunk of that is hydropower from the federal government, but also in the past few years, an increasing amount of both solar and renewable. And to contrast with what Mark was talking about, this is what we call utility scale. This is not rooftop solar. This is a solar facility in New Mexico that covers 250 acres with solar panels. It's that kind of scale. To get that power to you, we own and operate a transmission system that has over 5,000 miles of its high voltage transmission lines. Those two lines of our business cause, obviously, what we have to do to serve you power, but also it causes the compliance we have with all the various regulatory requirements, whether it be safety, reliability, environmental, what have you. We have annual revenues about $1.4 billion, and our average rate to our 44 members is a little over 7 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's where I'll stop and point out. Tri-State's mission as a cooperative, two cooperatives, if you will, is twofold. One is reliable electricity. We have an acronym we call, very simple, KLO. Our job is to keep the lights on. You flip the switch, the lights come on. That's the first job. And ironically, that has become probably the easiest job in the past few years. The second mission is how can we do that as affordably as possible? In light of the investments we have to make, in light of the compliance issues we have going forward, how do we keep those costs as affordable as possible to you, the end-use consumer? So I'm going to transition to two things. One is something we've done recently that was a significant event that will help hold the line on rate increases in the future. And secondly is that Clean Power Plan, which unfortunately will push things the other direction. First off, last year in 2014, we spent, and say we, meaning not just myself, but a lot of Tri-State staff, spent a large portion of the year completing a very, very significant financing project. Not necessarily the first of its kind, but the largest electric cooperative financing in history. What we did last year was we issued roughly $1.6 billion of new debt. And that was in multiple pieces, multiple markets, all kinds of various terms and interest rates, et cetera. But in total, $1.6 billion at an interest rate of 3.9%, which is very, very good. And one of the reasons we did it in 2014 was, as you probably know, interest rates were extremely low. We took advantage of that opportunity. Why did we do that? The primary purpose was to pay off all of our RUS debt, roughly $1.3 billion of that. You might ask, why did you do that? The RUS program, as you probably know, has been the linchpin of the cooperative business since the 30s. It has been what has allowed many cooperatives to be formed, allowed us to finance and grow over the decades. Tri-State was in a unique position with our RUS debt, where several things played into the decision. First is, it had become a smaller and smaller and smaller portion of our debt. On the power supply side, the RUS has become very limiting on what they lend money for. If it has the word coal anywhere in the name, there's no RUS money for coal. Lots of things like that. So over time, we had gone outside of RUS more and more and more. It got to the point less than half of our debt was RUS debt. And so we still had the obligation to comply with all the rules and regs, but less money. But the biggest driver was the way this debt was structured was that most of it came due in the next few years. This was debt we borrowed 25 years ago. It was 30-year maturity debt. It's all kind of coming due now. And having to pay back that debt, well, where's the money come from? It comes from rates for electricity. So we saw all these upfront debt payments causing rates to go up. How can we manage past that? How can we levelize that out? So when we did this refinancing, we put in the new debt that kind of matched how long the assets will be there, how long the coal plant will run, how long we'll be selling power with you, to lower the average cost. Basically, it doesn't have a spike at the end, it just levelizes it out over time. That will do a number of things for us. First and foremost, help reduce some of that rate pressure Mark talked about in 2016, 2017, 2018, to help hold the line on that. And also, because we're not paying that debt off so fast, we save nearly $500 million in the next few years, which prevents us from going out and borrowing that money someplace else. We can reinvest that into the business. And it also helps us on some of the compliance with RUS. This was a very, very significant transaction for us, and although not necessarily applicable to all cooperatives, I think a very opportune time for us to do so. Unfortunately, the flip side of this is only one of many things we deal with. And I don't want to get up here and say that all regulation is bad, because obviously it's necessary. But we believe we've gotten to a point in our country where there's maybe excessive regulations, and we deal with these constantly. Our industry, and I'll stand up here all day long and say Tri-State and our generating plants are as environmentally clean as anybody in the country. We have spent the money, we have done what we need to do over the years to make sure our plants emit as little as they possibly can. Every time they change the rules and tighten them up, we spend the money to do a better job. The Clean Power Plan that was proposed by EPA in 2014 is a little different animal, though. What it's requiring us to do, there's really not a technology out there that does that. It's not a matter of, we'll spend more money and make it happen. In general, the Clean Power Plan, it was designed to reduce greenhouse gases that theoretically cause global warming. So the plan targets carbon dioxide. When you burn coal, when you burn gas, you create carbon dioxide, just as I am doing so right now as I speak to you. So what this rule does, and it's a proposed rule, it's not final yet, there's a lot of pushback on it. Who knows what will come into place and when it will come into place. But the bottom line is EPA went through state by state and gave targets. Colorado, you must reduce your carbon dioxide emissions by 34% from now in 2030. Every state was different. They used its building block approach. They went through this thing and said, okay, what can you do? Increase your coal plant efficiency by 6%. 6% sounds like a small number to a layman. If we could increase our efficiency by 6%, we would have already done it. Okay, because it's worth money to us to do so. That's a hard task. Increase gas generation in Colorado by 134%. How do you do that? I mentioned we have nearly 900 megawatts of gas-fired power plants that we don't run much because they're expensive to do so. The plan says run them to a certain level. Ironically, the plan says sometimes run those at a level higher than your air permit allows you to. So they have some conflicts in the rule. Increase renewables by 75%. We've done a lot of things already, more of that. Increase energy efficiency, behind the meter stuff. Reduce your sales. What can you do as a consumer to lower how much power you buy? Every state's different. Tri-state operates, I said, in the 4-state region. We also have a coal plant in Arizona. In Arizona, their goal is 0 coal plants. What happens to our nearly $1 billion investment in a coal plant in Arizona if the rule says you cannot run that power plant at all? That gets into the issue here of what is going to be the impact of this. A lot of pushback on this. 30 of the 50 states of the country have opposed this rule. If you look at the map, the ones who have not are left coast, northeast, and Colorado. Colorado is one of the states who actually supports this plan. The effect of this, as Mark mentioned, is going to be, if it's implemented, first raise our cost of electricity. I can't tell you how much. The rules aren't written. Basically, this is a directive for the state. Colorado, write some rules that produce this result. What will it cost? How will it be shared? We don't know. The other question is, it goes back to our other mission. What's it going to do to electricity reliability? We have an electrical system built over many decades that relies on redundancies, relies on having a power plant sitting in the wings, ready to start up if need be to run. When one plant trips off, one trips on. If you start shutting down coal plants, the backbone of electric power structure, what's going to happen to the lights? Lots of estimates here, they're preliminary. Anywhere from a low of 15% of the coal generation in the U.S. will be shut down by this plan, to as high as an excess of 50% of the coal generation will be shut down. Again, we have existing investments in these power plants that if they became useless, what do? We have to buy or build something else, hence your cost will go up. Hate to end on such a negative down note. Maybe I should flip these two and then the financing second. But it is something we deal with. And if you want, anything you want to do on this is just speak up. Get involved politically. The fact that, the Colorado delegation has chosen not to oppose this, to actually somewhat support it. Basically, they say this is something we can do. One thing to do to help. If you have any questions, any comments, I'll be around afterwards, so please come by and chat, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. I hope tonight that we haven't discouraged you. We've tried to share some of the things that we're doing, Highline's doing, Tri-State's doing, to keep the cost of power affordable. But we do have some issues that we're going to have to face as an industry over the next few years. On this slide, it shows what our goal is. Our goal is reliable and affordable electricity. Also on this slide is www.action.coop. And we've asked you in the past, and I'm sure we will ask you again in the future, to go to this website and help us as we try to fight higher costs that are being mandated on us. We don't have anything going at this point in time, but please keep that in mind, and we may call upon you to help us again in the future to keep your rates as low as possible. So at this time, I'd like to thank the Highline Board of Directors, the employees, and their spouses. I also want to thank you, our members. Helen Keller once said, "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." So thank you very much. Are there any questions? The question was the new high-efficiency natural gas engines, will they affect Highline? I think that is very definitely a possibility. We've not seen a lot of conversions. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen any conversions from electricity to natural gas at this point in time. But that has us concerned if this clean power program pushes our costs up to a point and the price of commodities stay low, we may begin to see some of those conversions out there. So we're concerned about it. We just haven't seen it yet. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You can talk about it. Next on our agenda is the announcement of the 2015 scholarships winners. In your packet, or not packet, but on your table was photos of the 2014 winners from last year. And this is a list of the 2015 winners that were recently selected. Basin Electric gives $1,000 each year. And their winner was Timmy Keisel of Fleming High School. And Highline Electric gives several $1,000 scholarships. First on the list is Emily O'Neill of St. Mary's Academy of Inglewood, McKenna Walleen of Chase County High School, Rachel France of Fleming High School, Sage Herbert of Fleming High School, Byron E. Trump of Sterling High School, and Jessica Hartman of Chase County High School. And those $1,000 scholarships were four-year college scholarships. Highline also gives a $1,000 scholarship to two-year or technical schools. First is McCall Edel of Fleming High School, Austin Yon of Caliche High School, Tasha Cofield of Lone Star High School, and Drew Wellington of Fleming High School. Tri-State also gives some $500 scholarships in association with Highline Electric. Jaden Durbin of Haxton High School and Megan Wieselmeyer of Holyoke High School are the recipients of those scholarships. We have three alternates in case someone is unable to participate in the scholarships they received. Cara Karg of Caliche High School, Maddie Erickson of Sterling High School, and Leanna LeBlanc of Caliche High School are the alternates. Are any of those students here? If not, we'd like to really thank those kids for stepping up and applying, and we enjoy helping. The next question I'd like to ask, is there any unfinished business to come before the meeting? Does anyone have a comment or anything they'd like to share about the meeting? If not, we will draw for door prizes.